Back again. I might just leave his name Hercules. I don't know. I haven't had any luck finding a better one. So I'm back again to hack away at live streams talking about the rest of this stuff. I would love it if you would just stay around me for a little while. Oh, I've got so much stuff to say today, and it's all very disjointed. Look at you, aren't you pretty? I've got so many notepads. And none of it is organized. But we're in such a phenomenal time of change. And I know that I definitely wanted to talk about the architecture of the fifth dimension, which is being built. It's being built in energetic form right now. And those that there's an entire wave of people whose job it is to build things in energy before it comes down, so that it can solidify. And those of us who work with energy this way, part of that has to do with visualizing something and having a lot of faith, being comfortable working in realms where things are non-tangible for a time. Until it becomes reality. It sometimes takes a while, especially on a large scale. It takes a while before it begins to solidify, but it does solidify. And those of us who work, we work together, we work in teams a lot, and we all know that it's coming together. You're being way more active than I wanted you to be. I wanted you to just sit on my shoulder. So when I can tell that the energy is really running, like there's a transmission going out right now. And I can tell that because I suddenly got very hot. And he's suddenly very active as well. So it's going to run. I might wind up putting him down because you're way more active than I wanted you to be. And then I'll go through my notepads. Little by little. It's going to be a little patchy. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the 11 gateway. And I was going to talk a little bit more about twin flame dynamics, because that's come up. I just got off a session with somebody. Yeah. Okay. So awake. For people who are in the third dimensional paradigm and not awake, there are a lot of people who are not yet awake. And the divide is becoming, boy, I've really noticed it lately. It's become, it's become more of a divide. It's reminding me a lot of oil and water. just recently in my own life, I've noticed that there are more and more people. I've been passing people in layers where, and so I would imagine that it's probably true of you in your life as well, where there are people that we're growing out of. I've been noticing this in a lot of my associates, where you'll be with people who, like, maybe you thought was a lifetime partner or a very long-term friend, and even though you don't necessarily have a falling out per se, your energy just doesn't jive anymore. It just doesn't resonate. You're not really on the same wavelength, and you're not gonna be. There are some people that I still love a lot, but I really had to come to terms with the fact that they're not coming to 5. Their soul has made the decision to stay in 3, and even though they've adopted certain stylistic adjustments, or they may say that they know about ascension, or they might claim to be woke, whatever. That's a phrase that's kind of tossed around a lot. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. I've just really been noticing a lot of, how do I want to say this? I feel like I'm not saying this well. Especially in group dynamic, I guess, hang on a minute. I'm going to put him down for a second because he's just a little too active. Just one second. Come here, boo. Come here, baby snake. Come here, baby snake. Nope. Sorry about that. It's funny, I'm very aware today, right before I came on. I just have to make adjustments now that suddenly I can't have the purple, and I suddenly just, certain thing, I was very well aware that I almost never wear black and white because it's black and white. I'm very careful about the colors that I choose to go out on a transmission. And the energy is really running, which is why now I'm rocking. All of a sudden, I'm very hot. I was business partners with somebody for a while, and she had, while we were closely associated, our energy was linked, and mine, because it was so the way it is, was lifting hers up. But it's very interesting, that lasted for as long as it took to balance our karma. She had owed me a karmic debt, and as soon as the karmic debt ended, when it was her choice as opposed to something that she had to do because of karmic reasons, boy, did she sink. Every person is measured alone. We sometimes join our energy streams, or we match somebody for a time. But especially going through the ascension gateway, or in the process of ascension, there are a lot of associates that, if you take duty and obligation and karma out of the way, a lot of these people are going to drop out of our lives real quick. You're going to see a lot of divorces, a lot of estranged family members. And it's not because necessarily the love is, there's no love, but there are bandwidth differentials, and a lot of these bandwidths really do not go together. So yeah, really have to allow for that. I was going to wind up talking about moving through strata. It's very important at this time that we do that. Be free to move as you need to, because there are a lot of people who have unfinished business, who have to go and clear something up with someone, and it might take their vibration down for a while, and then they're going to move to where they truly are. Every person is going to be kind of measured. It's not a judgment, but it is an exact measurement, and you're going to wind up going where you actually belong, with people that you actually belong with. Your core soul group. And that's very different from obligation. So let me see. So can't force an awakening like you might want to. I know I've wanted to. It's like the head of a peony. You can't open somebody's mind. It's one of those sacred things that with spiritual awakening, you really have to wait until they want it, in order for that knowledge to penetrate. It's quite a bit like sex. It's like you don't want to penetrate the crown chakra the same way you don't want to forcefully penetrate. It's as above, so below. There should be no forced penetration in either direction. That said, there are certain times when it can seem like forced awakening. Like I'm realizing that I was telling the story about my own awakening where my guides had said that I was going to be traumatized. Or it wasn't my guides, it was an angelic channel who told me that a lot of trauma was going to come up for me. And when I had my Kundalini awakening, the full awakening, that was traumatic as well. I was, again, I was in an act of service when it happened. It's so interesting. There are a lot of these things where I've been in an act of service when something really startling happened. Like like the clay pit story, I was in an act of service when I flew up the hill. And I was in an act of service too when I had the Kundalini awakening. I had gone out with a broom to sweep the steps of a park, because there were children that walked there barefoot every day, and there were like prickly things that were falling from the tree, and I had gone out there with a broom, and I was just by myself, nobody else was around, and it felt like a lightning bolt, although I knew it wasn't lightning, but that's what it felt like to me. And energy, you know how they always say that when you have a Kundalini awakening, the Kundalini goes up your spine, and it did, but then when it finally made the full connection, it felt like it shot down through my crown chakra, all the way down, except it didn't go, it stopped right at like the perineum. But now I know that the reason nothing could penetrate, there was an energetic block there, because I had this thing. If you've listened to my last live stream, I was talking about this energetic block. I had an energetic barrier around me completely, and it was incredibly strong. And so all that, like the Kundalini rising, it felt like a massive explosion. And suddenly I could look down, and it was like looking down a stairway, and I could see transparent, all of my lifetimes past related to this one issue. They said, this is the only thing you have to do left. It was related to an issue of jealousy, where people were jealous of, somebody was jealous of me in all of these lifetimes where I was catastrophically harmed, like really badly harmed. But and it was because somebody was jealous of me and I had no idea. And they said, you still haven't mastered this issue. But it was like an issue that I had faced over and over and over and over and over. And I saw stacks of transparent lifetimes. It was like looking down into an apartment building. Only if everything was transparent, but you could see and understand what was going on in every single level. And in every level, in every layer, I could see all the people moving around, and I know which one I was, and I remembered every last one of them. But it was, I need a tissue. It was traumatic. 1 second. I need a tissue. My nose always runs in these things. And at the time, I was at Josh and Carmen's house, but they weren't there. And I had just gone out. It was during an active service that happened. I had just gone out with a broom and I was sweeping the steps and nobody was around. And then it was this really profound, traumatic experience. And I started crying immediately and shaking, and I got extremely hot, unbelievably hot. Like it felt like I was on fire, and I was sweating all over. You know, like a lot of people when they have their Kundalini rising, especially their Kundalini awakening, they get kriyas, you know, their body goes into motions by itself and you have no control over it at all. And very often they get extraordinarily hot. And I did. And I remember my head was sweating and I was dripping sweat all over. Like I was drooling, my face was like my nose was running, and I was crying, and I felt like I was suddenly aquatic. And I cried out there for like 10, 15 minutes, and I finally kind of made my way back into the house, and no one was there. Or like one person, they had like a visitor or someone. And I remember trying to eat a cookie to ground myself, because I knew that I wasn't even sure what happened. Someone said, you want a chocolate cookie? And I took it, and I think I wound up leaving it in the middle of the steps or something. But I wound up finding a phone and calling my friend, and I said, I need help. He said, you got to come pick me up, because I like couldn't function at all, and I was totally shaking. And she came to pick me up, and we went to Walgreens. I can't remember for what reason, but my memories came back. They were flooding back, like not all of them. Like the Joan memories came back a different time, but this were like it's like they came back in like gigantic truckloads. Like this was not the Joan material, but it was like the precursor to the Joan material, but it was really traumatic. And I had memories from like Atlantis and exploding planet and all kinds of things from Russia and being some of the Romanovs. And all of this stuff came back, and I was just crying and shaking, and like really shaking very hard. And Zoya was there to, I've talked about her before. She's helped me do with a lot of this cleanup work where throughout our time together, she has kind of gone with me. And every time I have one of these major, because I'm carrying the biggest burden, but she's there as kind of support. And every time that there's a major energetic event that happens to me, she's there in like the supportive role. She was there when I did Access Consciousness too. For those of you who know Access Consciousness, I was an energy healer for a while, and I was interested in adding to my my repertoire I already did Reiki and I did EFT advanced, and somebody told me about bars, and so I heard there was a class. I wasn't going to talk about this, but I may as well tell you. There was a class in Saratoga Springs, and so I was going to go get certified in bars, and I'd never tried it. And for those of you who don't know, bars it's the gentlest thing. They're just points on your head, and you're supposed to very lightly touch these points, and it's all you're supposed to do is relax, and it's supposed to be like not a big deal. It's just you get these energetic releases. As wasn't my experience. My experience, the instructor, after what happened to me, she called the founder. Is it Gary Craig? Is that his name? Gary someone. Wound up calling him and saying, we had something like, this isn't supposed to happen. But it was because my energy is something different, like totally different. I have a totally different energetic thing. I'm like part of a machine. And so when they touched my head, so I could experience it for the first time, everyone else is just lying there and it's totally quiet. And I'm like, I feel something, like I don't think this is supposed to be happening. But I wound up having such, I don't even know what to call it. It's like an explosive response, really explosive, to the point where they stopped the class and both instructors were just working on me, trying to get my body to stop shaking. But it was like convulsions, and I was crying, and I know what it is now. It's that I had picked up this enormous amount of energy for humanity. So when they cleared it on me, it was like kind of like a pressure cooker. Like if you punctured something, you didn't know that was that explosive, you punctured something, and the bars did do their job. But because there was so much energy in there, it's like I don't function as an individual. I am an entire group, and it was this massive group of people, and we'd all put our energy into this structure. So when they touched me, there was just like an explosion, and nobody was expecting it, let alone me. I had never even had bars before, but it was terrible. And then I cried for about 3 hours, and then I kept shaking for about 8 hours, and Zoya was there with me that time too. And I felt bad because, it's like other people were there to take the class too. And it's like, oh, Stephanie showed up, and now all the attention. Zoya has been with me to a lot of workshops and things over the years. And it got to the point where I stopped going to anything because I felt bad. Like I was, without intending to, it was like no matter what I do, I'm like just some kind of disruption. And the same thing happened, similar thing happened years ago at a Shri and Kira conference, and we saved money. We saved up for that thing for a really long time. It was like $600 for the weekend, and we drove to this hotel, and it was states away, and it was like this, have you ever saved up for some like some workshop or something that you're just really excited for? And then I got there, and I just wanted to be like a normal participant, and I wound up having the same thing. This is before I knew who I was, and before I knew what my job was. I didn't know anything about any of my kind of unique energetic structure. So I didn't know what was happening to me. I have a certain amount of sympathy for the entire thing now. And now that we've taken the top off of it, I'm not sure I haven't tried it, but I'm not sure that kind of thing would happen again. But I had a similarly extreme reaction with Shri and Kira too. Sri Lanka and Kira Ra, do you guys know them? But it was weird. I had, I won't tell you the entire story. Sometime I'm going to tell that story because that is actually a very funny story. But I had a very extreme reaction, and I didn't know what it was, but it was two things simultaneously that were polar opposites. I had a physical pain that was, talk about extreme. I broke my tailbone when I was 9, but I haven't thought about it since I was 9. And I had an excruciating pain in my tailbone that felt red and hot and so painful that all of a sudden I couldn't sit down for, like, I didn't know why. So there was a lot of pain at the base chakra. And at the same time, I got hysterically laughing. And I couldn't so hysterically laughing that like it disrupted the entire thing. I was the only one laughing. They weren't doing anything funny, but it was like these two polar opposite things. And yeah, it was like, now I understand what my energy was doing. But I was embarrassed at the time too, because it was so strong, it was uncontrollable. And I wanted to be in the room, but I didn't want to disrupt everybody else's experience. At any rate, I've learned, and Zoe was there for that one too. So I've learned over the years that every time I have energetic cleanup work to do, or like work where another supportive person is needed, it's always her. And yeah. Anyway, where was I going with this? So don't be surprised if, just go back to my previous point, a lot of people are leaving strata. Some people are waking up and going into the 5th dimension, and the operating system for the 5th dimension is entirely different. It operates a different way. The 3rd dimensional operating system, people who are kind of still asleep and kind of locked down there, they will view those in the 5th dimension as very often we get accused of being irresponsible. We're very rarely looked on favorably, but they also can't see us. They can't see what we're actually doing, because you have the level of awareness that you have. And people who are still asleep can't see into the 4th dimension, and they can't see 4th dimensional phenomena. They usually can't see energy, and when they do, they think something's wrong with them. They will often try to medicate it, because from the 3rd dimensional vantage point, you're told that these things aren't real and something's wrong with you. Not necessarily so. Yes. Let's see. Built up prana, exactly. Like a pressure cooker, though, but not just mine either. Yeah. So, do I want to talk about this now? So, if I'm tempted to just go through all these pads of paper. Oh, goodness. I've got so many of them. Whoops. Hey. Wait. Come back. Hang on. Sorry. Wait. He knocked it. My dog is asleep on the floor. He knocked the cord. Okay. There was something else I was going to say about the act of service. So the other day, I was listening to my past live stream, and I noted there were a couple of things that I noticed that sometimes I listen to it and then I'm like, oh, I wish I had put that in there because I forgot I wanted to add, I forgot to mention XYZ. Yeah. There was one thing in, I think it might have been 2 live streams ago, that I forgot what I was going to say. And I said I was going to get back to it, but then it didn't come back to me until afterward. And what I started to say was that what Sarah Adams told me, I think she's right, told me about those of us who are doing work in the etheric realms. So much work is going on there, you guys. We are working like crazy. What was it? Sarah Adams did something the other day, and she called me. She was exhausted. The woman was exhausted. And she said, I was up all night, something like bringing up 80 million souls from the underworld. I can't remember the way she said it, but she was absolutely exhausted. She said it was like wading through cement, and we freed something like 80 million, and they all came flooding out. And there's work. There's a lot of work that's going on. And what she had said, because we meet a lot and we talk a lot, because sometimes it gets really lonely. Like, I don't know anybody else who's, I know people online who are doing it, but like in my personal world, I go days without seeing anybody, and it gets really lonely. And sometimes it's easy to kind of start to believe more in the physical world. You know how this is sometimes, where you get caught up in believing something tangible, as opposed to, because the third dimension will tell you that only something tangible is real. But the work where faith comes in is where you can see something before it manifests into form, and you can work with the energy to make adjustments so that when it comes into form, it's a form that's to your liking. So that's why it's really important to learn. It's a skill set to learn to work with your imagination, to learn to trust that the stuff that is less solid doesn't mean it's less real. It means it's on its way in. You're basically looking into the future. It's the same way when if you're somebody who can see auras, you can read somebody's energy field, and you can see where an ailment is coming in. It's like if somebody thinks about cancer all the time. One of my least favorite things is like these breast cancer awareness marches or something awareness. Don't put that in your awareness. The last thing you want is to keep breast cancer in your awareness, because the more you think about it and the more you go and you take actions, you're actually going to make more of it. That's the way it works. A better way to detect breast cancer is never to think about breast cancer, but if you start to see something in the energetic fields near a person, you can make that adjustment where it's still easier to change. By the time it's solidified into the body, into an ailment, it's way more difficult to change. Physical reality is the hardest one to change. What are you doing? Move over. Wait. Whoop. Wait a minute. Okay, walk away, please. Hello, sweetheart. Oh, I know, you're just here to turn off my light. Just a minute. There we go. No. Stop. Okay. It's not yet supper time, I know. We've got a few more minutes. Let's see what time it is. We've got half an hour. He wants his dinner. Go lie down, please. Thanks. You know how easy it is to change your mind. Or maybe it's not easy, but can you imagine something different? There's a faster way to go about it. If you're not aware of the medicineless hospital in China, they've got this. They've got an entire hospital where they have trained energy healers who operate like surgeons. They have an operating room, and they use the equipment just to, like, you can go find it on YouTube. And they will use repetitive motion and sound, and they basically chant a tumor away. They can put an ultrasound. I've seen this online. They can put an ultrasound and watch it, and it was like a team of 6 surgeons, but only there's no cutting. They're trained energy healers, and they never look. They can see the tumor, but they don't look at the tumor. They're saying something like, basically health and wellness, or they don't even say the tumor is gone, because that's still talking about the tumor. You're visualizing wellness with such conviction that you basically manifest. It's basically speeding up the process of manifesting health by giving absolutely no attention and no energy whatsoever to the ailment. So if there's something that you do, it's so funny. It's depending on what realm you're in. In the 3rd dimension, that's a realm where very often you pay attention to a problem and you have to go into density in order to address it. But then as soon as that realm is over, so that's like the realm of war, and like that's why all the disclosure is happening in the 3rd dimension, because it's this realm of contrast, where the solidity must be dealt with because it's already solid. But as soon as you come up, it's a totally different MO, and your operating system becomes one of belief and imagination, and the energy is much higher, and it requires it's a different skill set entirely. It's very interesting to me that of all things to wear today, I chose to wear black and white. I changed my clothes, probably 4 times. And I don't know why, but I was so uncomfortable with everything that I normally wear, and I wasn't gonna wear this, and because I kept saying, well, it's black and white. I'm not gonna wear it because it's black and white, and I want to talk about the higher dimensions. But then I realized, this was calling me. Specifically, I knew I got it right, and I thought there must be some reason why I'm being called to wear black and white today of all days. I'm not entirely sure why, but I was going to talk about, and the energy's really running. There must be something in this realm that is it bridging duality? Hang on a minute, let me feel around for it. We're talking, something, yeah, I'm getting a transmission now. There's something about 3rd dimension. When I say 3rd dimension, I'm talking about the 3rd dimensional paradigm, which thinks of things which deals in polarities. So, oh, it's bothering me now. Yeah, energy's coming in. Sorry. I was going to talk about twin flame issues a little bit, and I was also going to talk about going up through the 11 gateway, and I was going to talk about astral travel a teeny bit. But now I didn't expect this energy to come in, and now it's running very hot. So we're on this precipice. So you're getting a transmission. I'm going a little nonlinear. I can tell that like I just lost my speech. My nose is running. So whether you can feel it or not, it's definitely coming through. There is a heightened, it feels like a break. I'm getting the image of, yeah, oil and water. I've been noticing this lately where it feels like we're right at the threshold. I know I've been saying this for a while, but it feels like we're right at the threshold because something else is about to come in. And that means letting a whole bunch of the previous structure go. Anyone who's listening to this, there's probably something like a group of people that needs to be let go, or at the very least, one or two significant ones to make way for the new. For some reason, so I wasn't expecting any of this at all. For some reason, this wants to come in. Recently, actually maybe a couple months ago, I was talking to somebody who was practicing his astral travel. And, oh my God, I'm so hot right now. This is a hot flash. This is energy running. I was talking to somebody who was practicing his astral travel, and he's talented. Like he's good. I know him. He's good at astral travel, and he's a diligent student. He practices on a regular basis, and he got his skill sets have really been coming online, this guy. And he told me that he was practicing his astral travel, and he went into a meditative state with closed eyes, and he opened his eyes. He had gone out of body in his astral body, and he was sitting across from Rick Jewers, who was like sitting at the table, like eating cereal or something. And this guy opened his eyes, and he was just really surprised because that wasn't where he intended to go. He just opened his eyes and found himself there. And then he didn't know what to do. So this brings me to one of the things that I was going to tell you. What this guy did is that because he didn't want to be intrusive. This is why we got into this conversation. We had this conversation about what do you do? Because I've had that experience too, where I accidentally found myself someplace, and I had the same reaction he had. He had this reaction where all of a sudden he was at the table, and Rick George was just sitting there, eating. And this guy was like, "Oh, crap! Like, did I invade someone's space? Like I wasn't trying to. He just found himself there. So he like wished himself away really quick." And I can relate to that. I think the reason, like Rick, I know is very high vibrational, and he's got very strong energy, and he catalyzes a lot of people. So this was a couple of months ago, and he catalyzes a lot of women, I know, because there haven't been enough divine masculines who basically far more women woke up, divine feminines, far more women woke up, and a lot of us had been kind of waiting for our divine masculines to show up. There have been several that I'm aware of, several divine masculines who can catalyze with their vibrational frequency, catalyze a lot of people. And it doesn't have to be a pair bond either. It doesn't have to be divine masculine, divine feminine. We all have masculine, feminine sides. Nonetheless, there has been that dynamic. Rick catalyzes a lot of people, and it's possible that that this guy was somebody else that his energy affected to such a degree that that when he was astrally traveling, he just woke up and just kind of opened his eyes, and he was in front of Rick Jewers. I thought that was funny. But I've had this experience too with my twin, where, in fact, I had that experience. Goes back a couple of years, but I had the experience of often I found myself in astral body, just all of a sudden. One time I opened my eyes and I was in his shower, and like, I didn't want to be there. I wasn't trying to be there. I just found myself there, and there was hair on the wall, and I don't think it was his. It was like long hair, like somebody else had taken a shower there, and there was hair on the wall. But I was like, what do I do? Like, I didn't know what to do. And so what I wound up doing, because I did try to like close my eyes, and I just kept opening. Every time I opened my eyes, I was in a shower. But I remember thinking at the time, I don't think he wants me here. I don't think I don't think I'm supposed to be here. How do I get out? There were a couple times I only found myself in his shower once, but there were a couple of times where I found myself in the upstairs, their upstairs bedroom. And I was like, it would be like suddenly finding yourself in somebody else's house. So in astral form, not everyone is going to be able to see you. It's going to, like, the same way ghosts work. Like, if a ghost walks in right now, I'll be able to see it, but somebody whose level of consciousness is still, if they're not awakened, if they're still in third dimensional paradigm and just, not awakened, they won't even see that anything is there often. That happened to me a lot, and I'm still not entirely sure. Like, I'd like to speak to my twin and compare notes. There were a couple times where I think I was seeing out of his. Actually, I would be interested, for those of you who are true twins, let me know if any of the rest of you have had this experience where it's like you've merged bodies and you can see out somebody else's eyes. I wasn't trying to spy, because I don't do that, but I didn't know how to turn it off. And there were a couple of times where, like, now I wear glasses for reading, but my twin wears glasses. But there, a couple of years ago, before I wore glasses, I opened my eyes and I was looking out through glasses, and I kept going like this, trying to take them off. I was like, why am I wearing glasses? And I went to take them off, and I wasn't wearing glasses, but I could see the glass. Like, I was still seeing through glasses. And then I was like looking around going, why am I in his house? And then I didn't know how to get out. That was really weird. So one time when I found, it happened a lot a couple of years ago, and I didn't know how to get out. And so there were a couple of times where I like snuck down the stairs to, and I remember like trying not to be seen, but it was really freaky. And I imagine if they knew it happened, it would probably be freaky for them too. But I remember not knowing how to get out. And then one time, like, seeing some people there, like I saw his wife and his kids, and I'm like, I'm not supposed to be here. I don't know how to get out. And so I wound up going out the front door and starting to walk home, starting to walk back to my house. And then there was some point where I was just back in my own body instead of in astral form. But that actually happened on a couple of occasions. There were probably, again, it was a couple of years ago, but there was probably at least 10 times where I would open my eyes and suddenly just be standing in the upstairs of their house. And usually his wife was downstairs and the kids were downstairs. And sometimes I didn't even see him, but I was upstairs in the house going, shit, like, how do I get out? I don't know why I'm here. I didn't put myself here, and I don't even know how to, let me know if that's happened to anybody else. It is a weird thing, though. I'd be interested if other twins had done that as well. And then I distinctly remember when I was in his shower, I remember thinking, I don't think he wants me here. I don't know why I'm here. But I remember thinking, I'll try to get out and be as unobtrusive as possible, but I seriously have no clue. I don't know what to do. It's new to me too. Energetic dynamics are weird. That was kind of before I had figured out all of the, I'm still not entirely sure I know all of the structure of the construct, because I'm in this construct and I know that it's not just me and my twin. It's also has also been his wife, and then we were in a structure in a Merkaba with a lot of other people that gathered. It was the Ascension Ark, and then it has gathered. There was a mechanism to gather the energy of a lot of people to speed up the development. I'm explaining this really badly, but we built that thing in order to accelerate the development of humanity for a time. Speaking of prodigies, the reason the Joan of Arc was a prodigy, and everyone in that construct has the way that energy combines, it does something specifically so that accelerated development, or I should say this differently, that particular energetic stream will always produce prodigy types, specifically because the whole aim of the thing was to generate accelerated development. So anytime you combine those energy streams, you're going to get the same thing. It's like a recipe. Remember I said, like, every force evolves a form, and if you want accelerated development, you combine these things, and this is what you get. For that reason, we needed to accelerate in that whole Joan of Arc template. We had to accelerate the rights of and the abilities of girls, women's rights for sure. Yeah. So now the Joan of Arc template, we put it together to land it in a certain point in history for it to last until basically this window. And now we can't take it apart. We put a safeguard in so that you're not even going to see it in the third dimension. You cannot dismantle it from the third dimension because you're not even going to see it. It's an energetic structure. It can only be dismantled from the fifth dimension, which means, and it's going to take more than one person to take it apart. So at least two of us are going to have to be, like I can't take it all apart by myself. I need somebody else to get up that high. So it's going to require cooperation. And that's one of the things, like the whole twin grid, the whole twin flame model. Oh, I was going to talk about the twin flame model too. Sorry, I was all organized this morning, and then now I came on and I'm feeling so foggy-headed. Like I was fine right before I turned on the live stream, and now like the energy's running and I feel like I could be drunk or something, but I'm not. It's just I'm feeling very foggy-headed. That means that they're doing something with the energy. Right now it feels like my head is it's full of gray smoke. Like behind my eyes, it's all full of, it's like grayish energy. And it's clearing, and that means it's clearing for you too. And it's funny, I just had a session with a woman right before this, and it was similar. So all of my sessions are sequential. And she's pregnant, so that means the pregnancy has something to do with this transmission. That's interesting. Okay, let's see what else. Yeah. Let me see what else is here. I've got all of this stuff. Not that one. Not that one. One moment. Sorry. Oh, I was going to tell you this. This is going to be a little spotty. Like I'm going to jump around topic to topic because I've got all of these pads full of notes. And I always say that I need to organize my material, and I really, really do. But it's not organized now. Right now, I'm just trying to spill it all. When I was 9, I don't think I've told this story before. When I was 9, I was taken up in a spaceship by a boy who wasn't supposed to bring me up there, but he felt sorry for me. When I was 9, I was living in Chappaqua, and I had absolutely no friends whatsoever. I was, it just worked out that way. And I had a dog and a cat, and that was it. And then my mother one day gave away the dog while I was at school, and I came home and he was gone too. And I was devastated because he was literally my only friend. And I was powerfully lonely for a really, really long time. And my room was off from, it was separate. It was in a separate portion of the house from everybody else. It's amazing how often that's been the case. At any rate, there was a night where this wasn't a dream. I actually went up in a spaceship. There was a boy who I suddenly found myself in a spaceship, and I was brought up there by a boy who was older than me. He was probably, he looked like, I was 9, so he looked like he was maybe 12, something like that. And he had kind of medium blonde hair, was taller than me, and I want to say he was Pleiadian. I can't say for sure he was Pleiadian, but it was, if I had to guess, I would say Pleiadian. But there were grown-ups. It was his ship. He lived there. And there was something that I would identify like I don't think it was actually a kitchen, but I would say it was like a kitchen-like space. And all the adults were in there doing something. And this boy spoke to me telepathically. And there, so I knew that he wasn't supposed to bring me up there. But they were watching me. They knew me, and he knew me already. And he knew how lonely I was. He could feel it. And so he brought me up there to give me comfort, but I wasn't supposed to actually be there. Like, he totally went against the rules it's kind of like he beamed me up. And talking about astral travel, except this wasn't astral travel, it was different. I was there in physical form. And so only because the only reason he could get away with it was because the adults were distracted. They were talking in a group. It's like they were doing something, and he had done something. I definitely got this impression from him. He didn't tell me what it was. He had done something to make it so they couldn't see me unless they were paying attention. It's like I got the feeling that, like, if they bothered to turn around and look, they could have seen past what he did. Kind of like if a kid puts like a sheet over a card table. It's like it's not really hiding. If the adults are paying attention, they're going to say, "Hey, get out of there," or maybe not. At any rate, he had done something so that it wasn't completely obvious that I was there, but I definitely wasn't supposed to be there. And we talked for a little while, and I could feel his compassion. He knew how lonely I was, and it's kind of like he pulled some energy he pulled some of my sorrow. I had a lot of sorrow, a lot of grief, and just a lot of loneliness and sadness, and he took some of it from my heart. I felt like he pulled some from me. And then he came forward, and I got scared because there was so much love coming from him. And he started to lean toward me, and I got scared because I thought he was going to try and kiss me, but he didn't. He leaned forward, and he put his forehead on mine. He leaned way forward, and he put his forehead, we touched foreheads, and just kept him there. And the strongest wave of love I have ever felt in my life from anyone. Parents, children, doesn't matter. I was absolutely flooded with the strongest unconditional love that I've ever felt to this day. And then he leaned back out, and then something happened it's like the parental figures in the kitchens, like the group started to break up and someone started to come in, and they didn't really come in the room, but I had to go hide just briefly. He showed me, he like mentally showed me where to like duck. There was a half wall, and I ducked behind that, just kind of crouched a little bit behind a half wall, just so that the people who were walking past the door couldn't see me immediately. But he told me that it was time for me, that I had to go back. And I didn't want to. I never wanted to go back home ever again. I just wanted to stay up there so badly. But I was suddenly back in my bedroom, and that was too bad. But I never forgot it. And I think he was Pleiadian. At any rate, I thought I would share that story. I want to go back there a lot. So it's so funny. I was wondering, I don't know if this is true. I could totally be making this up, but I wondered when I met my twin, who's also very telepathic, we communicate telepathically a lot. But I remember wondering to myself, I still wonder. I wonder if that was him. Like, or maybe it's just another person. I'm not sure. But I do wonder. I am much more comfortable with telepathic communication. It's a better form of travel. I remember so one of the things I was going to talk about a little bit was, I know you want your dinner. We're 1 minute away. I might have to go feed this dog. I was going to talk a little bit, because he's not going to stop wagging because he knows it's 5:30. You hear him? Thump, thump, thump. I know. He's got the eyes on me. Here he comes. 1 second. So, should I go feed you now? I know. There you are. Hang on. Can you wait a few more minutes? What else was I going to say? Oh, I was going to talk about twins and telepathy. Yeah, I'm going to talk about twins and telepathy. Should I feed this dog now? I'm going to take a 1 minute break so I can feed this dog. I'll be right back. Right back. Just a minute. Sorry, 1 second. Thank you. So, what the hell happened in my head? Came back with quills. All right, where was I? So I was going to talk about, oh God, I was going to talk about karma too. I don't know if I'm going to do that today. I have a lot to say about karma though, really. I've been meaning to do that. Hang on. In one of these notepads, crystal children. Yeah, I have to talk about that. Damn. So the other day, when I was on my last live stream, so my live streams are sequential and also bag of mixed nuts, man. When I was talking about this, so I'm going to tell this whole story again. There was a time that I was surrounded by this, just like the Virgin of Guadalupe. So what this is one of the things I neglected to mention it, and then I listened to it and I was like, crap, I forgot to mention it. In 2013, I saw this around my twin. I was like, what the fuck is that? And It's an energetic force field. So, but I forgot to mention that the Virgin of Guadalupe is also an extraterrestrial. So a lot of angelics and religious phenomena, spiritual phenomenon. Sorry, totally lost my train of thought. Is extraterrestrial in origin. So the Virgin of Guadalupe has the same thing around her that I had. There was so we also put this same thing around. Josh Cram had it when he was King Charles VI. King Charles VI in France. You know what I should do? Am I going to do that on this live stream? I think I'm not. I think I'm going to do a separate live stream where I show you guys all of the photographs. Cast of characters. We all look the same, man. We all look the same. You look at Josh Cram, you look at King Charles VI, it is hilarious. They look the same. We all look the same. It's funny because you have the way that works. So you have different biological DNA, but only 2 strands are biological, and the rest of the energetic DNA, all of those strands, that carries, like I always say this, every force evolves a form. So the amount that our faces change is negligible. And if you really want to see something funny, I really should do a whole live stream on this. You look at the pictures of me when I was John Stanley, and it's tragic. I'm glad I was blind in that life because, man, but it's very funny. I really do look a lot alike. I look just like myself. It's tragic, but it's true. My nose is somewhat different, but yeah, it's kind of amazing. So I saw this around my twin in this life, but I have it too. And this is one of the reasons why the energy was so strong that, like, when they did the bars, there was just this explosion, and I went into basically convulsions for 3 hours, and then it's like they stopped the class, and the instructors had to come and stop working with everybody else and just work on me. There was another one where there was a time, like, I think the energy has really changed. It should have, because I've been clearing it and getting it to go back to people. So what happened is that the Ascension Ark was designed to gather energy. It was supposed to take all of this energy into a structure so that we could basically do something a little bit like centrifugal force, using the properties of centrifugal force with a whole bunch of ascended master types who are going to, like, help the population get the benefit of, as kind of develop their empathy, have the get as many viewpoints as possible. There's a way that it worked, and I've taught. I don't know where my diagram is. You know the diagram where it looks like the Star of David. The Ascension Ark is basically a Merkaba, and it's an energetic construct, but it works on a number of different levels. And it's designed to do. It's a structure. It's a machine. It's designed and has a whole bunch of us in it. Designed to accelerate humanity's development get as much, maximize the growth. You know, I've said this before in past live streams that it's like a moving sidewalk at the airport where, you know, we have to preserve free choice. So we're trying to get them to have a, you know, basically we were dealing with a lot of stagnation, a population that just was sitting there and doing nothing. And they weren't learning anything. They just weren't learning. So you have to preserve their free choice and give them, but get them moving. Like choose a side, choose any direction, just choose a direction and go, because you're going to learn no matter what direction you go in, you're going to learn something, but you got to learn something. You can't just sit here. They're repeating patterns over and over and over and just not learning at all. So, there was a mechanism that we made that worked. There's a rotation in it too that worked to maximize empathy so that you feel what other people feel, because we're trying to cultivate compassion. And we're trying to also preserve, because you have to preserve free choice. So get them to have a preference. And as soon as there's a preference, you know, that saying, take one step toward the gods, they take 10 toward you. That's kind of like what the Ascension Ark does. It's like one of those moving sidewalks at the airport where if the sidewalk is going to move you a lot faster, but it's only going to move if you take a step. It's going to move you in the direction of your choosing. You take one step, we'll move you 10 steps. But you have to choose something, you know, have a preference. So that's what the Ascension Ark does. And it's designed to, we heightened the empathy, and we also pulled everybody's energy. We did take everybody's energy, but it wasn't for malevolent purposes. It was basically like holding the hands of the babies. You know what it's like? It's a little bit, because it's all energetic. It's a little bit like the way like electrocution works. Like if you touch something, you can't let go of it. Or if you hold on to an electric fence, it works a little bit like that, where the energy is going to run in two directions. I've got hair in my face. The energy is going to run in two directions. So, you know, like this little finger, this little person like reaches up, and like we do the majority of the work, because at the base of the triangle, you know, that's the amount of, plus it was incredibly dense. It's hard to move. I mean, we were there to help. We were there to help, you know, churn stuff up. So in order to, the whole planet was so dense and so dark that there was a time that war was actually useful. Not that you want not that you want war, but there was a time where just to get out of density and stagnation, if everything is just chronically dense and not moving, like stagnant water, except it turned into coal because nothing is moving. You have, you know, in the Bible it says you have to separate the wheat from the chaff. There are beings who were trapped who preferred light, but it was so dense they couldn't move it. And then there were beings that preferred dark, and you're going to have to separate that too. You're just going to have to separate it. How to separate it is a whole other problem, because you've got the belief structure in there that is has been really difficult to penetrate. It's very much like what the hell is in my face? I've got hair in my face, or like stuck to my eyes or something. That was weird. Where was I going with this? Belief barrier. my God. What was the last thing I said? So in order to get the population where they needed to be by the Ascension Gateway, which is now, there are certain things, certain qualifications. It's like you have to have empathy. You have to have equality. You know, masculine and feminine have got to be equal. You have to be in service. Not all beings are going to go. Oh, I started to say about, thank you. I started to talk about, I just want to say this, like 17 years of kindergarten. Like the problem with tradition is that there's no upgrade. It's like driving while looking out the rear view window. If you're always taking the rules, it's been done this way, so we're going to continue to do it this way. There's a point in which kindergarten is over. And if you say, no, I learned my letters, or I learned, this is the way we print, and you want to say, yes, but now, you really should have been in 10th grade by now. You can't continually just play with blocks. Right now, you needed to be over here by now. Very much like that. So we had to maximize the development. So we built this thing called the Ascension Ark, and there's a way that you get as many people in there as possible. So, okay, so I started to say about the compression. If you've got something very compressed in form, because form is the most difficult to move, right? In the third dimension, that's where everything has already solidified. So the amount of energy that it takes, like traction, you have to get in there, and then you're also in the timeline. So very often things take a lot of time in order to move stuff that's in the third dimension. It can take a while also. Much easier to move things and build things in higher dimensions and have it come down into form, have it come down to a form of your choosing. I'm going to get back to that. 1 second. I wish. Okay, walk away. I fed you already. In order to, we built the structure in energetic form. We assembled it in the 6th dimension, but we operated it a lot in 4. And it works by pulling up. What you have to do is get the energy from the people by agreement. It has to be free choice, and it has to be by their agreement. So you need permission because it is a free choice planet. Also, you have to preserve free choice in both directions. So because it's a realm of duality, and it's so funny that I'm talking about this and I'm wearing black and white. This is why. So we're moving out of duality. So I'm going to talk about the 5th dimension a different day. I'm just going to give you a little bit of history now. In the 3rd dimension, also in the past, it has been a time of very great density and great polarity as well. The polarity was important. Give me a break. What did you just do? Oh, give me a break. I think this happened the last live stream too. Didn't a dog poop in the last live stream? I think he did. One moment. You just asked to go out, and then I didn't let you out because I was talking. Sorry. Sorry. 1 second. Well, he asked to go out and I ignored him. So because of the density and the necessity to preserve free choice, and the need for movement, you're trying to get some of that energy out of a compressed state and basically into a different location. Even though we're not talking about matter so much, we are talking about energy, and you're trying to generate movement and growth. So the way we did that is we use attention, because you try to get, energy goes where attention flows. So if you create something like, for example, an icon, like you get a Joan of Arc figure or any icon, and you get everybody to look at it and be very opinionated about it, you galvanize everyone's attention. And so if you take if you take Joan of Arc and make her the center of an attention, particularly if you make, and we did this with Isabeau of Bavaria too. You're trying to get it to go, get the energy to start circling. Really, what you want is, I almost said it's almost like you want to start a cat fight, but it's a little bit like that. But it's toward a purpose. You're basically trying to get all the kids to grow. So the prophecy, I'm going to talk about prophecy at some point too. There's a way that happens. There's a way prophecy happens. Because you plant a prophecy, but basically it starts with a time distortion. I actually have a prophecy begins with a time distortion. You can experience the effect of something long before the actual event, believe it or not. Very easily. Because everything moves in two directions. The experience of time, while people are in a linear mindset, it goes in one direction. You experience a past and a future. But if you're off the timeline, or actually, sometimes even if you are on the timeline, you can just depending on the timeline, depending on the time distortion. Where's my diagram? You can experience the is that it? Here it is. I was going to redo this one. I was going to redo it because it's sloppy, and I wanted to redo this one before I used it, but I didn't, so I'm going to use it anyway. Let's say this is circular time, and let's say there's an event like the 100 Years' War or Joan of Arc lands. Let's talk about that. So time goes around, and every single it's kind of like if there's a, I'm explaining this badly. Imagine a roll of cellophane, because time is like a fruit roll-up, or a roll of cellophane or a roll of carpet. It's basically a roll. If there's a major event that really lands on one, like if you imagine a roll of cellophane, there's, let's say there's a rock. The next layer is going to cover the rock, but it has, it's going to feel the effect. So it's like it goes up. So the way prophecy works is right where there begins to be like a time distortion. You're going to feel the effect, that you're feeling the effect of something. You're going to be affected by something before it even happened. So every single time there's another layer, depending on how you react. Remember we were talking about the toroidal field? That the people in the third dimension, the extent of their power is basically limited to the way they respond to things. That's where their reaction is. It comes down, it hits their reaction level, and based on how they react, it goes out into physicality, and then it's going to come back up where those of us in higher dimensions do all kinds of stuff to try and sometimes mitigate the circumstance if we can. If you see it in energetic form, you can say, oh, that looks like it's going to be cancer. I wish that person hadn't thought so much about breast cancer. I'm going to see if I can adjust it before it lands into, before it manifests into a breast cancer. I'm explaining this badly. If that person, let's say if a woman continues to constantly focus on breast cancer, I'm fearful, I'm scared I'm getting breast cancer, and she has a strong emotion and she focuses on it a lot. That's basically the way she responds is going to determine, there's only so much we can do about it. We can kind of work with the energetic form to prevent it insofar as we can, as much as we can. If she's really determined, then it'll come in. But I mean, usually this stuff isn't, nobody intends to do that. It's by default. And that happens on a personal level. And wars and negative events in society are created the exact same way. So depending on how you react, if you have a strong event once and the next time it comes around, you respond the same way, the distortion is even greater. So now if you don't change your reaction, it's harder to correct. So then it goes around again because you haven't learned your lesson. The distortion is even greater, and this thing should have been down here. It could have been just smooth and fine and everything was dandy, but now you've got this massive event. So certain things happen routinely throughout history. You can see something like a French Revolution or an American Revolution or some huge global inequalities, or things like exploding planets, like there was an Atlantis disaster or a Noah's Ark disaster. How many times do actually, I'm thinking about that. I want to make sure I get my history right. There have been planets that have exploded and entire populations have moved to a new planet to try and work out their things because they blew up the last one. We're all survivors of Atlantis, particularly in North America. Entire groups. There's group karma too. There's individual karma, and then sometimes you've got your core soul group and you're working through certain things. But then there's also large group karma. And sometimes there's group imbalance that just has to be lived through again and again and again until you freaking learn. So it's very interesting to me the way people respond to Trump. I wish they wouldn't. The way that has manifested. If you want a benevolent leader, it's so weird because I understand why. I just understand why it works the way it works. And at this time in history, too, it's particularly important to stir things up as much as possible, because all of the darkness has got to come up and out. It has to come up and out. But for example, if you wanted Trump to behave in a different way, what you shouldn't do is really point your finger at him and be very vocal, because what that's doing is making a blimp, which can serve at this point in history. That is serving a purpose. I was also going to talk about the energetic dynamics behind icons like, which I just understand how it happens. But I feel like I really got off on a tangent. I was still going to talk about the 100 Years' War, Isabeau, Bavaria, and Joan of Arc. There's a way that this happens. The energetics of icons, it's an important thing to talk about. It's an important thing to understand altogether. At the time of Joan of Arc, for those of you who don't know, there was a very famous prophecy. And the prophecy said, it was long before Joan of Arc was born, and the prophecy said, France will be ruined by a woman and saved by a virgin. That was set up by us so that everyone was primed to be very dualistic about it. What we had to set up was a I just want to say it's an energetic dynamic. We're actually one family. But there was an in order to get the thing to run the way it had to, because again, it's an extraterrestrial structure, an energetic structure that was designed to promote development and preserve free choice. And not everyone is going to go to the light side. Some of them are going to go to the dark side. And you have to wind up, you have to get the dark out of there. So how are you going to find it? You've got to get the ones who prefer it. You've got to get the ones who go down and grasp onto materialism. Yeah, you have to. You've got to separate that out. And you've got to get movement in there. So we set up this thing where there was a centrifugal force, kind of a type of energetic centrifugal force. And it didn't all go well. This is our second shot at it. We're kind of back to or at least I am, back to finish the job and dismantle the thing, because it was never designed to stay running forever. We're supposed to dismantle it, but you can't dismantle it until you get to 5. So, because you can't even take it, you can't take it apart from 3 because you can't see anything in 3. Where was I going with this? I know I say that a lot on these things. So the prophecy said France will be ruined by a woman and saved by a virgin. And that was designed to set up a kind of clash, or basically side taking. So the idea was to set up a kind of a spin, gather everybody's attention, because that's their power, right? You gather everybody's power. You set up kind of a spinning thing. You have a whole bunch of other, there are a lot of other beings in there. We're not the only ones. There are 3 of us in the main triangle. In this lifetime, it's Josh and Carmen and me. It was us, but we had different names. Isabeau of Bavaria, Joan of Arc, and it was Charles VI. But then their son was Charles VII, who I put on the throne because the father died, first king. And in this lifetime, my job has been to totally to go up to 5 first, and also down to as low as it can go, and clear out all of the, basically run all that energy through my body to clean it out. It has been a fucking nightmare for the last 7 years. It really has. So the job was to hold that energy and keep the rotation going to heighten everybody's empathy. So if you, I wish I did have that someplace in here. It looks like, you've seen this. If you've watched me before, you've seen the other diagram. It looks like, is this it? Where is it? Oh, come on. It looks like a Star of David, but it's basically a rainbow. And what it does, hang on. It's around here somewhere. No, it's gone. Basically, it looks like a Star of David. Sorry. And we spin everyone around there, and they gradually get everyone's perspective, because on every triangle, I can't believe I can't find this thing. That is obnoxious. Nope, it's gone. I don't know where it is. As they go around, they get the perspective of all of the other parties. So it heightens empathy. So energy goes in 2 directions. So if you get, I can't believe I can't find it. Oh, well. If you have, if you use Joan of Arc like the icon, and the other ones they gather their own degree of attention too, for one reason or another. Everyone grabs the attention. Once we have the attention, energy goes where attention flows. We have their energy. The energy goes in 2 directions. So they get the benefit of our much stronger energy. So we're affecting them. We're giving them the benefit of our maturity. We're giving them the benefit of our speed, for sure, and our strength. So our energy is extremely strong. Just like you take one step toward the God, they take 10 toward you. Same principle. We basically hold the hands of the babies and say, okay, come on. And it's not all malevolent. And this all happens in the fourth dimension. And depending on where, it's kind of like depending on each person's preference, a little bit like following a movie star. You have your own preference as to who you want to give your attention to. And that's the way we determine your free choice. We're trying to give you your free choice. You can choose to follow whoever. You can, if you have a leaning toward horror movies, you can read Stephen King. If you have a preference for Disney, you can put your attention over there. The way it works, where the hell is my diagram? You know, my diagram with the Star of David and each triangle is a different color. It works just like that, depending on where your attention goes. It's kind of like you're going to go to somebody's classroom, a little bit like that. And you're going to pick up that flavor of person. Is it over here? So, is this already on? I'm sorry, I'm turning on the light. Is that any better? So we wanted, go lay down, please. So we wanted Joan of Arc, the icon, the figure, to get a lot of attention because those qualities were what we needed to get into the population. We needed a child warrior. She was the first indigo child. We needed women in leadership, and we needed women to take a much more, a much stronger role. We needed individuality, authenticity. So we created a figure. Oh, we also had, we needed a very strong God orientation. Not necessarily religious in the church per se, but you also have to meet your population where they are. If you can't reach them, you can't reach them. But it had to be a indigo child, but one with very strong leanings toward spirituality, naturally. And children in leadership. So another reason why, even though I was originally supposed to go down and fight for Charles VI, the father, Charles the Beloved / Charles the Mad. He turned into Charles the Mad. But originally, when he took the throne, he was known as Charles the Beloved. They loved him. The population loved him because he immediately took control of the finances and started giving the money back to the people. He changed the tax system. He did all sorts of things. But then he went crazy. He got very ill, and there was huge battles for his power because his wife and his brothers and there was all sorts of clashing over who would assume the power when he was out of his mind, they said. So they didn't really want him to get better. They really wanted him, to stay, quote unquote, crazy. But he also left his body. But one of the reasons that happened was because he was, this is behind the scenes information. King Charles VI was an ET who was part of the Ascension Ark. And he actually died early due to density because he had one of these structures around him too, and it's designed for protection. So we go down, it's designed to protect our bodies as ET beings. You go down into these areas of incredible density, and we have basically force fields around us because the density it's so difficult to get high vibrational energy and maintain it in a physical form. Usually your physical form just fizzles out. It's like any amount, like a lot of electricity trying to go through something that has a lot of resistance. You know, the physical filament or whatever, it can melt, or I don't know what the hell happens to it, but it's very, very difficult. So he died. He lasted a while, had a very hard time getting, he shot out of his body, had a very hard time getting back in, went in and out a couple of times. Sometimes he was mad, but the interesting thing is, if you read the accounts of that, what he did when he was crazy, one of the things he did when he was crazy was he said that his body was transparent, and he wanted to carry pieces of iron around with him. So why was that? Well, it's because he's got interdimensional sight and his body is transparent. He's looking at his energy body. And he said his body was like glass. He thought his body was glass. And it's because in the vernacular of the day, his body's transparent. And so he asked for pieces of iron that he wants to carry around with him. What does iron do? It grounds you. He's trying to get back into his body. It's one of the reasons why in 2013 I got, where's that thing? I don't have it on me now. I got a piece of a hematite necklace. It's a device. It's actually a device. I should show you where it is sometime. I'll do it in my next live stream. I've got a hematite device. It's fascinating. I got it from David Sarita's website. It was $350. And for about maybe 4 years, I didn't take it off. It was like literally the only thing that was keeping me in my body at all. The entire time that I was dealing with, you know, like the explosive energy that I couldn't control it, or I couldn't control it at all. It was like being strapped to the front of an ongoing train and like trying to stop it with your bare feet. This energy was just, it was out of control. It was designed to, like there are 3 of us in the initial level, and there are 3 of us for a reason. When he died, we were kind of screwed, more than a little screwed. We tried to use King Charles VII, the Dauphin, his youngest son. And so what we tried, so we had to go to a plan B, because King Charles, who I didn't even meet, when I was Joan of Arc, he had already died. But at that point, so much time and effort had gone into the planning of it. They were like, okay, we're just going to keep going. But what happened was that he was supposed to be the anchor, because his energy was in the first triangle. There are layers to this thing. In the initial, the base triangle, the strongest one, Carmen Lizardo, me, and Josh Cram. Only it was the previous lifetime. So it was Isabeau of Bavaria, Joan of Arc, and King Charles VI. His energy was a lot stronger than his son's. So when we planned certain things, like he was the anchor. So when he died, we went with her youngest son. It just kind of left us at a little bit of a, okay, we got to go for a plan B. So we decided to give it to her youngest son. Isabeau Bavaria says, no, don't give it to him. Give it to the guy give it to the English. And so there was a lot of blame that went to her, and everyone called her a bad mother because she wasn't raising her son. It's true. Hadn't given him any training, didn't give him really any love at all, basically totally rejected him. He hadn't been reared for leadership of any kind. He was basically really pretty much ignored. Nobody expected him to take the throne. He hadn't, but we decided we could use that to our advantage, because since he hasn't had all of that programming, so like, this is how you act. We figured he was more malleable. So we thought, okay, we'll turn it to our advantage. Maybe we can use it toward children in leadership, which is what we wanted anyway. So we'll tip it that way. It didn't work the way we wanted to. It turned out he was not a good listener. He had leanings toward darkness. He wanted power, but he didn't want the responsibility. There was a time, for real, like I know this, I remember this. There was a time in that lifetime where he had prayed for guidance, for real, like a genuine prayer. There was a time at the beginning where he was very uncertain, and he was scared, and he was trying to do a good job. And based on that vibration, we said, okay, we'll do this. And since I'm going to be there, we'll give him the throne, but I will help you with the decision making. I'll be there to guide you. What happened was, of course, history. He didn't want to be told what to do. He wanted to make his own decisions, but he didn't actually want the responsibility. He only wanted the title. So that's always a recipe for disaster. In this life, so we're all basically the same people. We have different names, but our characters are basically the same. In this lifetime, an anagram of his name is Malice Hath Will, because whenever, and he's the one who wanted me to run over the frogs. There are these choice points, and so someday he'll probably learn not to do that. But so I'm really not trying to make him into a villain. It's basically one of those things that you do when you're spiritually immature. There's going to be a point where he will learn differently. He will learn to be a wise. You can't just have a title and a crown, because with the crown comes responsibility for wise stewardship of your people. Which means when they're trapped in the city of Paris, you free them. You don't leave them and say, well, I'm going to blame them. I'm going to leave them and say, well, it's not my responsibility. The English have them, and, not my fault. What can I do? He sabotaged, in that lifetime, he sabotaged our army, his own army, because he didn't want the responsibility for feeding his own people who were starving in Paris, in his country. And he sent people to burn the bridge. This is somebody who didn't even go to his own battles. At any rate, yeah, Malice Hath Will. That's an anagram for his name. So these are fascinating things to follow. If you follow us all through history, it's amazing. I think I am going to show you the photographs the next time. It's hilarious. We all look exactly the same. The noses are somewhat different. And at some point, I'm going to wind up, maybe this time, at some point, I'm going to wind up talking about karma too. There's one thing I think I will tell you. I think this is funny. You do have to be careful what you say. If we're talking about the way energy manifests into form, it's easier to change things when it's out in energetic form. You've got to be careful with your speech. In the Joan of Arc lifetime, the Dauphin, who I put on the throne, King Charles VII, was known and mocked for his big nose. His father had a big nose, and the prince had a big nose. And that entire lifetime, he used to say, I hate my nose, I wish it was smaller. I hate my nose, I wish it was smaller. Hate my nose, I wish it was smaller. So in this lifetime, he does have a really small nose, unusually small nose, and he absolutely hates it. He should have phrased it differently. He should have just said, I love my nose. I have a great nose. I love my nose. Because really nothing's wrong. I think his nose is adorable. I was married to him. I think his nose is just fine. Nothing's wrong with his nose. But it is a pretty small nose. But he hates it. And I know why. It's because he spent an entire lifetime saying, I hate my nose. I wish it was smaller. That's pretty funny. So I was going to talk about, I feel like you know, when I listen to this, I can already tell. When I listen to this on review, this is one of the things where I'm going to say, damn, there's like stuff to, I missed a couple of things. What the fuck is going on with my hair? It's driving me crazy. Ah! I was going to talk about karma. More than a couple of things to say about karma. This is a pretty interesting thing, though. So here's where I get a little nervous because, you know, I've said this on like the last live stream. You got to be careful. Or I would ask you, I'll say it that way. I would ask you to be careful. I want to tell you something, but I want you to hear it with ears of compassion. And I want to say it without causing any, how do I do that? So, hang on. So I call on our highest level personal guides and angels associated with balance. Help me in advance relay this story in such a way that only kind vibrations are received and negate and cancel any and all negative effects that may come from anything that I may say, because my intention is only positive. Yeah. What was that? Did you see that? So one of the things that happens, and so I run energy through my body all the time. And it's not just mine, it's other people's, lots of people's. And I'm very keenly aware of like little twitches or anything that, so my finger just jiggled when I said that. That wasn't by my intent, it just happened. All right, so is there anything that you want me to know before I tell the story? Because my intention is to inform, not to, for real, not to point fingers and judge. So we're talking about historical figures that also happen to be alive today. But as we develop, we all learn certain things. I want to tell a story, but I would ask that you hear it with ears of understanding, knowing that my intent is not to, as I've said before, not to vilify anyone. So but I think this is a fascinating thing. In 2013, my memories came back, and so it wasn't just my memories that came back, but my guides had said that my job in this lifetime, I'm unplugging the entire Joan of Arc hologram. And basically what I think that means is I'm getting to, of the group of us, because I'm a group. I say this all the time. I'm not an individual, I'm a group. I don't have the luxury of just thinking about myself. I think about everybody else in the group, because my whole job is migrations, and I'm the one who, in the construct, which is an actual device, and we're all connected energetically. And I think this is why I might be wrong about this. I haven't heard back from enough twins, but I think that, or any really, I think this is why I've had that experience with my twin as much as I did. Like the telepathy and seeing somebody else's eyes, and I know that we ran energy energetic circuitry through my body, and I also know he's my mirror, but I also know that there's a portion that I do that with Carmen too, and I haven't talked about it as much, but I've had certain experiences, like when I first met her, I saw something different that was also a mirror type thing. It wasn't the same formation as this, it was a different one, but I had something different with her. She was Isabeau Bavaria, but it was like we were in a capsule, and it looked like mitochondrial DNA, and I'll talk about that a different time, maybe later. At any rate, we're in an actual energetic machine. So we're wandering, like in third dimension, we're wandering around, and we're like in individual bodies, and we don't see one another, or at least I don't see them. But energetically, we're in a construct, and when I'm in a space with them, I can feel stuff strongly, really strongly, like through my body. Like I've said it before, God forbid Josh ever drops a bowling ball in his foot, or anything else. Like I can just feel stuff that happens. So that excuse me. I don't know if it works in reverse, but it would have to. I would think it would have to. At any rate, there's this device, and I started to talk about karma. So I'm basically responsible, but I go up to 5 first, I think, because that's where we can, but I actually think I have to go up there with Josh too, because I think we start undoing it, because it's not meant to remain. The construct was there for a time, but all icons have to come down. It was there for a time, but we have to, but the third dimension is falling out. So that's that. We're taking it apart, and everybody who wants to stay in 3 may, everyone who wants to go to 5 may, but the rules are all changing. Like the amount of assistance that the population needs, is now basically, it's all changing. It's no longer going to be take one step toward the God, they take 10 toward you. It's going to be 1-to-1. It's going to be a state of equality. Giving and receiving is going to be paramount. We're going through the 11 gateway, and it's all changing where you're taking individual responsibility. So for your own, for service. So it's not like you don't get help from God. Of course you do. But you are the help that you're here. As I've said before, you're the body of God here to help others. Your participation is required. If you're somebody who's not going to participate, you're not going to help, then you're going to remain in 3. And there's another protocol. If you still benefit from that lesson, then that's where you go. But everybody is going up, like the 5th dimensional people. Oh, what I started to say about, sorry, just before I go to karma, what I started to say about the energetic construct, like the Star of David, is basically you go to whatever class, like you go to whatever icon you gravitate toward. There's going to be one at a certain vibration, another at a certain vibration, and based on your preferences, you link with them, and they kind of help you along in the direction of your choosing. But then the construct is going to, we're dismantling it. So a lot of the energy is going back to the people it came from. And that basically being the point. There is a time, so at some point, it won't be tonight, I don't think, but at some point I'm going to talk about how we got how the energy is getting back to the people, and it is, and that there were several main waves that it came where from the construct that we were carrying it in. And you want to know the maybe I'll talk about it now. The first major pullback. They have to take their power back. That's the thing. You have to take your power back. You have to be strong enough where you actually say, I want this job. I'm going to do this. And then you stop looking at an icon or stop expecting somebody else to lead you. And then you take your power back. So the first night, this was just phenomenal. Because I was very keenly aware that since I was the icon figurehead, I was holding this amazing amount of energy. And you want to know the night that it was like a bathtub was drained. It just went bloop, was the night that Trump was elected. It was amazing. Just amazing. And that's because, and I could feel it. I could totally feel it. I had this dream that I was in a bathtub, and all of a sudden, it was like it drained, but it didn't drain like it normally did. It drained like it dumped. And that was just amazing. It was a good feeling. It was a really good feeling. But I had this dream that the bathtub, and it was 2 bathtubs, one sitting on top of another, a clawfoot tub. And it's because I've done this job, first the Joan lifetime, and now the other one. I came back and we're still carrying this, or still was. And then the people took their power back, and I could totally feel it. And suddenly the bathtub just drained, and I could stand up, and I didn't have to carry it all. And it was the night Trump was elected, and it was because all of a sudden there was, you know what there was? There was a feeling of concern for our fellow man. There was this thing like, oh my God, you know, there was something like, well, people just took their power back. I could totally feel it. It wasn't that it went to him. It didn't go to him. It went to the people. They took it back. So it's like personal accountability. Instead of expecting someone else, it was kind of like, it was almost like the whole idea of iconship altogether. When he was elected, people were like, oh, okay, we can't trust that anymore. You know, we'll go. Yes. Anyway, the point is they took it back. So go lie down, please. Hello, love. Go lay down. So karma. Because I've had this role and I'm the first one to go to 5 within the construct. I'm the first one to go to 5. When my memories came back, also because I'm a group, not just me. Go lay down. It was important for me to see everybody's karma. So normally, I think this was shown to me on a need-to-know basis. I don't think that this would normally be something that would be done. But when I left my body, when all my memories came back, I was out in space for a while, and I was looking at, I could see my lifetimes. The way I saw my lifetimes were, it looked like a little bit like an apartment building on its side, or basically like a checkerboard series of boxes, but it was all tipped, and I could see all of them concurrently. And I could see how one lifetime, the issues of one lifetime or the strength of one lifetime would have to be balanced. Very much, it looked a lot like the Council of Balance, actually, except there were all these little boxes, and I could see how everything in every one lifetime, it led to something over here. And if one lifetime was really strong and dark, there would have to be a counterbalance over here. And I could also see that all lifetimes are concurrent. You might want to know this part. All lifetimes are concurrent. And just the same way, time is a spiral, but you experience it in linearity. You experience it moment to moment to moment, but really it's all happening at the same time. So you can, if you know that this wasn't handled very well, or if you know that a certain distortion up here gets really extreme, but you know that it started down here, you can actually go back and make an adjustment, or make an adjustment to any lifetimes anywhere in the spiral. If you think it would mitigate, you really can do that. If you want to mitigate something, like for example, I have a friend who is having a fairly pleasant life. And in this lifetime, she kind of views, she helps other people, but she kind of views it as a chore. Views caring for others as something like, when can this not be my job? Wants things to stay more in the third dimensional paradigm, really wants that. Likes things traditionally, tries to put them back. You know, when can you not be my job? Or when can, you know, my father not be my job? Why can't he take care of himself? How come this has to be my job? So because of that, from my perspective, I'm not saying my judgment, but from my perspective, because I can get way up high, it's kind of like having that aerial view. I can see in energetic form how if she cares for other people, and it has, with a genuine emphasis on genuine, if it's out of duty or obligation, or like, I wish I didn't have to do this, it doesn't count. But if you have genuine love and you genuinely want to care for someone, you're ahead of the game. That's really what you want. Because she's like, she does it, but not with joy, not happily. There are I'm just aware that there are 2 lifetimes of hers that are, it's kind of like forming curds, if you've ever made cheese or something. It's like in energetic form, energy starts to solidify a little bit, and things are coming into a form. She's got 2 going in 2 directions. One where she has to take care of someone and she can't put it down. And she's got another one where she has needs to be taken care of because she can't help herself. She has to learn both things, that when someone needs something, you genuinely want to serve them because it feels good to give care to another person. That kind of thing. But both of those things wouldn't be necessary if she can manage to learn that lesson now and do it with actual joy. If you do it, but you think it's a pain in the ass, you still think it's a pain in the ass. You do it, but like, all right, I know I have to do it. It's not going to teach you that lesson. What the lesson is to say, of course, I'm happy. Like when you really feel joy serving another, that's when you go higher up to the 5th dimension. The 5th dimension, you have to go through that 11 gateway, which is equal service. Basically, you take care of yourself and you serve equally. It's equal giving and receiving, but the giving has to be with joy, not like genuine joy, genuine love. I want to do this for you. I'm happy to do it for you. If you're doing it and it's begrudging, then your vibration isn't high enough, and you're going to sink down to 3. That's when you're serving out of duty and obligation. Your vibration is too low, so you can't go to 5. At any rate, I keep threatening to tell you about karma. My point is, I saw, because I do have an actual need to know, I was able to see the karma of everybody in the group, and it's an extensive group. So I saw not only the people in the immediate triad, I saw people from the Joan lifetime, that the people who had tortured me, the people who burned me, the people who basically threw me away and said, she's a pain in the ass, we're not going to talk to her, you know, whatever. It's easier for us if she's in prison. Let's just let the English have her. I saw their karma too. It was fascinating because it has like a formation, and it was a little bit like, they wouldn't have shown me that if I didn't need to see it. There was something, so I know that part of what I'm here to do is talk about it, because there is, I know I said this before, there's this, there's very often this idea, the word karma is thrown around as though it means punishment. And it's really not. I mean, there's also there's also dharma. But karma, it's basically just the law of cause and effect, but it's not like, there's also a beauty about it. And this is, karma has a certain love about it. Because everything is based in love. Everything in the universe is based in love, really. It is the strongest force in the universe. But it had, I saw this thing. So they showed me this. It helped with my own healing a lot. It really did. Because I could see, they showed me something about my ex-husband and my ex-father-in-law. So, and because they were both very prominent characters in the Joan of Arc lifetime. So when my Joan memories came back, I will preface it by saying this. Holy crap, it was hostile. There was a lot of trauma and a lot of shock. Shock and, oh, I will also say this. So much of it had gone into the ground. Like this is in Riften, New York. Rift on. It directly relates to the 100 Years' War. You know how in the body there are meridians where, like, if you want to, I don't know anything about acupuncture, but like if you want to, you might have an ailment in your liver, and you put a needle someplace completely unrelated to the liver, but except it's on the meridian, right? So that works backwards. The earth has meridians as well. So the 100 Years' War, the Loire Valley, southern France, somehow or another, through some ley line, that energy from the 100 Years' War produced, it's linked strongly to Riften, New York. And listen to that word, rift on New York. It's all about rift on. This is where the fight energy is condensed. You wouldn't know it, but it's all about it's basically the site of like the 100 Years' War. I don't know if this would be the place that, there's basically a nodal spot there. It's in New York, and that's where Anna Divine School is. And whatever you do to the energy there is going to directly release or treat or somehow adjust the energy of the 100 Years' War. So my energy is very, very strongly linked there. I became ill, incredibly ill, catastrophically ill, almost died. I was given 4 months to live, and I was ill for 15 years. Bedridden a lot of the time, terribly ill. Stop, walk away. As soon as that became my residence, I mean, as soon as that became my residence, I was in graduate school, moved to Riften, and even though I was commuting, as soon as that became my primary residence, my energy started to go down, and I didn't know anything about Joan of Arc then, but I was very aware, and this is before I was an energy healer too, but I was very aware that for some reason my energy was going into the ground. I didn't know anything about it. It was before I became a Reiki master, before I did anything with energy. I didn't know that I did anything with energy. I was totally oblivious, but I was aware that I was getting weaker and weaker by a lot, and my energy was going into the ground, and I didn't know why. I loved it there, but my energy was all going into the ground. And Now I know why. Now I know it's because it's related to, it's directly linked to France and the 100 Years' War. So I moved to my ex-husband's childhood home, and he lives next door to his parents. My ex-husband was King Charles VII, the Dauphin that I put on the throne, the one who betrayed Joan of Arc. His father was the bishop who burned Joan of Arc. That doesn't mean they're horrible people. These are just the figures they played in history. But I want to tell you about this story because it relates to karma, and I actually think it's a stunning story. And you know, our own histories set us up to learn certain things. I know that in my own history, looking back on my childhood, when I finally discovered the Joan of Arc identity, I looked back on my entire life and I just went, oh my God. All of a sudden, every last single thing made sense. I'll tell you some of them sometime. But when I was Joan of Arc, there was a time after I was captured where I was held and imprisoned in a tower. It was about, I was held in a cell, and they kept thinking I was basically held for ransom, but then the king didn't bother. He had the money, but he just didn't bother to pay it. He could have gotten me out, and they all kind of thought that he would, but he chose not to. He chose to leave me in prison, same as he did with his own people, who were also held in Paris. And he'd never bothered to get them out, even though his own army was there, and he could have just freed the people. He chose to sabotage the army's efforts and let the English have the people rather than pay the money. And he did the same thing with me when I was in a cell. They asked for a ransom of 10,000, and he decided not to pay it. He did have enough money. And then there were members of the army who raised the money and went to him and said, we raised the money, here's the money, go get her out. And he still didn't. At any rate, I was being held in a tower. The tower was about 60 feet high. It was a high jump. It had a little window at the top, and I was held there for a really long time. Months went by, and this was after the public trial. There was a period of time where I was separated, and they decided to put me on a little bit of a, they changed tactics because I was holding up too well. And they changed tactics, so they decided to hold me in solitary confinement and question me privately, which involved a certain amount of torture, threat of torture, confinement. I was put on display a lot. They would bring people around to see me because I was an oddity. At any rate, it went on for a really long time. And months into it, you know how I was a teenager, and teenagers sometimes think that they're kind of invincible. And anyway, I was just cooped up too long. There was too much energy, and I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand it. So I had this bright idea that I was going to jump from the tower. And my guides did tell me not to. I was told not to jump. I'll go on record and say that I was told not to jump. And I ignored them, and I jumped anyway. And so the idea was what I thought. I thought either that I would die, and death doesn't bother me. But really what I thought I would be fine. I thought I would probably just, you know, kind of get the wind knocked out of me, but I'd be fine and I would like take off running and escape. That didn't happen. I was knocked unconscious. And they discovered I was gone, and they brought me back to the tower, and the bishop at the time, who was now my father-in-law, really wanted me burned. The decision was made, and it was his at that point. The decision was made that I was to be made an example of. Hello, love. And so they had multiple physicians heal me, care for me, and make sure that I got well. Make sure that I was well enough and lived in order that I be burned in public. The point was, they cared for me enough so that I wouldn't die, but then my existence was way worse in the tower because then they didn't want me to jump again, so they chained me to something like it was like a log or a beam, and then I had something metal around my neck, and then I really couldn't move, and it got even worse than it had been to begin with. At any rate, the point of the story is that, the prince that I put on the throne and gave everything to didn't bother paying the ransom. So fast forward 600 years, not quite, but a little bit. Michael Withall is also a teenager, and he's in Riften, New York, in his parents' house. So here's the way karma works. Karma works where so the whole point of karma is not to punish. The whole point of karma is to teach. And God is all loving and all benevolent. You do need to grow and learn. Like any good parent, you want your kids to learn what they need to learn. You're going to teach them as well as you can, as lovingly as you can, but they do need to learn. They are going to experience the consequences of their own actions, but you're never going to give them more than would be useful. For example, David Wilcock gave this example where he said he was working with a client one time, and memories came up for his client that they'd been at a Colosseum in Rome, and they were watching a person get mauled by a lion, and they were giving the thumbs down and laughing. They had not yet learned empathy. Only at that time, like recently, were they finally strong enough and mature enough to benefit from receiving that karma. You're not going to get, if you do an egregious error, if you're really young, spiritually speaking, if that thing gets done back to you, you might not even make the connection that it has anything to do with what you did. You're not going to get the lesson back until you're going to learn something from it. If it's just going to traumatize you and damage you, then there would be no point. It would just be perpetuating the damage. You're only going, so the whole point of me telling you that these lifetimes are concurrent like my friend now, who is, unbeknownst to her, doesn't really realize the consequences of her act. Like if she adjusts her behavior now, she can mitigate both two very heavy lifetimes that are forming for her based on her actions in this lifetime. All of these things happen concurrently. So you can adjust your behavior in one lifetime to change your behavior, to change the karma that you're going to get over there. Sometimes we resolve these things in layers. Like right now, for Michael to receive all of the karmic consequence that came from the way he treated me, he's nowhere near spiritually developed enough for that to make any sense. He's not going to make that connection. So he's going to be protected, actually, from receiving the full measure of that until it won't kill him, or until, you know, it just has to make a certain amount of sense. So he got a degree. So in his, a degree of it. So when he was a teenager, I just think this is really beautiful. Not that it wasn't a bad experience, it was a bad experience, but the way it was handled taught me something about karma, that being the point of the story. I learned something by watching the way group karma works. So that's what my intention is in telling the story. I'm telling you about group karma, because if I can tell all of these stories, it's not to tattle on another person. That's not why. We all have things to learn. But when you realize that, like, all of us were in this group dynamic together, and the reason it's important to talk about group dynamics now is because we're moving from a time of individuality. We're going through the 11 gateway, where you learn to work with, you know, like the twin dynamic. You learn to do this with one other person, where you really see into another person there, and they affect you. When they move, you move. It's like kind of like a three-legged race, except there are two of you, you're tied together. You're gonna learn to navigate how it is to work with one other person so that you're in tandem and not in conflict. That's a skill set, you have to learn it. And then you're gonna learn to do it with a small group, where you learn to love one another. This is a skill set. And you learn not to judge another person. So if you can do that with somebody, so that's why we're having all of these small groups for, like, mission work. All of these groups we're grouped together by task, because first you form a group. The initial stages of that is when you like the people that you're working with and you're all on a joint mission. When things get larger and broader and more sophisticated, eventually, when you're spiritually developed enough, you're in a larger group of people, and you don't always like they're not all, you're all on the same mission, like the Ascension Ark. It's a structure. We're all in it together. We're all here working as a team on this one thing, but you're working for multiple different aspects, and you don't necessarily agree with everybody's agenda. But that's what we were here to promote: empathy, so that you can empathize with someone even when you don't agree with them. You don't have to like anybody else. You do have to love everyone. The love is the universal field. You can have as strong a personal preference as you like. You don't have to like anybody. You do have to love everyone and treat everyone equally, with equal respect, whether you like them or not. That's what you're learning. At any rate, so the thing about the so in this lifetime, my ex-husband is the prince who didn't bail me out, prioritized money, Didn't care if I rotted, didn't care what happened to me, didn't care if I was being tortured. You're no longer my problem. Get out of my face. I've got my own life to live. That's what he did. In this lifetime, his father is the man who put me in the tower to begin with and burned me. Made it his business. I want her burned. You know, we're going to make sure she's healed so that we can make a display of her. Pierre Cochon. Very famous. The Bishop of Beauvais is the one who burned Joan of Arc. Questioned her, me, put me on trial. Very smart, very strategic. He's the same person too. Really smart, really strategic. I actually really love him. I really do. I love my father-in-law, my ex-father-in-law. But once upon a time, he burned me. At any rate, but here's the point of the story. So I think this is really beautiful. Michael Withall, when he was a teenager in this lifetime. So I was a teenager when I jumped out of the tower. And it was because I thought it would be fine because I was a teenager and you feel invincible. So Michael Withall, when he was a teenager, there was a willow tree outside his parents' house, and all his cousins were coming over, and they used to play this game called Commandos, and it was a game of basically hide and seek in the dark. And he had this idea. Who blames him? This is a great idea. He had this idea that, and they used to play Commandos a lot, so it was one of the things like you look forward to it. Your cousins are coming, it's going to be really exciting, and they would dress in black, and it was like this. It was like this exciting thing. So he has this idea that he's going to rig a stunt, and he's going to do like this James Bond stunt when everyone's running around. He ran a wire. He climbed to the top of his the willow tree, and he ran this wire down through the upstairs window of his parents' house. He wraps it around the chimney, a vehicle for fire, a vessel, and then he takes a like a boombox. He climbs up the tree, and it's got the theme from James Bond, and so he's got this flashlight, and he decides that when everybody's racing around at dark, his friend is gonna shine the light on him, and he's gonna play the theme from James Bond, and he's gonna slide down the wire and go into his parents' window. So it sounds like a plan, right? So they decide to test it, he and his friend. And his friend goes first. And his friend, so it's interesting to me that because every force evolves a form, absolutely nothing is random. His friend goes first, goes before him, just like somebody else did go before him. There was a predecessor. So his friend weighed less. His friend makes it no problem. Michael goes, and the wire snaps, and he falls. So it's basically a very tall fall. And he falls on his wrists. He breaks both his wrists, and he's in arm casts. So what I think about, so I know that relates to the fall from the tower. You always get, so it's basically, the whole point of karma is that you need to learn empathy. So what happened with with his arms in casts is that he's immobile, and someone has to take care of him. So he can't wipe. You know, it's humiliating to a degree, depending on who you are. When you're immobilized and someone has to come and clean you up, what I like about it is that the person who locked me in the tower where I jumped because I couldn't stand the confinement is himself confined, has a very hard fall, and is himself confined and immobilized. He did that to someone else. But that it's not about punishment. It's about learning empathy. Do you understand what happened? Would you do it again? The thing that I find is especially beautiful about it, though, is that the bishop who had put me in that position intentionally, he's the one now who has to care for another teenager. He puts one teenager in confinement and has other people basically caring for me to heal me while I'm in misery so that he can burn me. And 600 years later, here's this other person, his son, his own son, another teenager who thought that it would be fine, has the fall, is experiencing that, and the person who winds up caring for him, the person who has to learn how to care for another who's basically in the position that that he put me in. Both of them put me in that position, and now they both are addressing that karmic residue on both counts. And it's the bishop who now is in the position where he feels, this is the thing I thought was beautiful, where it's not like punishment, like you have to learn to care for somebody who did something stupid, like jump from a height. It's that he's doing it now. He's caring for someone from a position of love. You know, he's caring for his son, wiping up his son because his son can't wipe himself. But it's the same act. It's like the same two people came together to address the issue. They could have avoided it if they had just gotten me out of the tower and maybe not tortured me. But they're healing it together. I actually think that's a really beautiful portion of the story. And when I saw that, like the way it appeared to me is that I was basically out in space. That's what it looked like. I was basically out in space. It was all dark. But I was watching these lines of energy going from person to person, and some of it was so incredibly subtle. That's what really, the beauty of it was, just the amount of love and nuance. Basically, that's the way I want to say it. It was the nuance of the way it balanced. It balances with such incredible subtlety. Like they're not done. Like the amount of torture that I went through is it was larger. It was. So I know that the two of them will meet some certain circumstance again. It's like the energy exchange there is not equal. But I also don't, it may not come, I may not have anything to do with it, and nor do I have to. I learned a lot of trust from watching it all together. The amount of subtlety, the care with which it was managed was really remarkable to me. And it's interesting that like Robert Withall's a spiritual leader. Like he burned Joan of Arc, but he's not spiritually backwards. It was really pretty interesting. Like he really knows how to be a leader. And actually, I really have a certain amount of respect for him. I also saw certain things. I saw certain things. I was able to look at everybody and see. It helped me. I felt so much love for every single person. I was able to look at their physical ailments, and I can just see it. I'm like, I know exactly why that's there. It's not coming from me intellectually trying to figure it out. I was just able to look at, like there are some people in the group like who have one leg shorter than the other. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. they haven't balanced it all yet. They're one side. There's an imbalance in the appreciation of women. I mean, that was pretty interesting. Like there's a masculine feminine imbalance where the one side is shorter than the other, and that makes a lot of sense based on past actions. But I really don't feel any malevolence. In fact, I felt a great deal of love. I really did. It's also interesting to me. It made me appreciate certain things about my ex-husband too. My ex-husband one of his eyes, he was born without the muscle that he can't look. His left eye can't look backwards, or it can't look to the side. It can only go to front and this way. So that's fascinating too. Because what that means is that he literally is incapable of seeing anything about the past action toward the feminine. It's absolutely fascinating. That's why that problem exists. He's missing that muscle. And I'm not saying that to vilify him in any way, but it makes a certain amount of sense that if I say I was Joan of Arc and this happened, he's incapable of seeing that. It is true. It is true. But it tells you, so like every force evolves a form. It's absolutely fascinating. I was born with, I may have said this before, but I was born with a divot in my left thigh, a birthmark, goes all the way to the bone. It looks like if there was bread dough, it looks like somebody stuck their thumb all the way into bread dough, but it goes all the way to the bone. And I was born with it. And that's in 2013, 2014. I learned that Joan of Arc was shot with a crossbow in the thigh at the Battle of Paris. That's pretty fascinating too. And made a lot of sense. So many things made a lot of sense. Anyway, where else? I was going to say something else about karma. Fall from tower. My soul group calls me Kitty. It's so funny. Speaking of twins, one time I think I wrote an email to my twin. I remembered. Sometimes when I look at my twin, also sometimes with his wife too, but it happens differently with her. One time I wrote him an email and I said, remember we call you Kitty. I said, that's so funny. We call you Kitty. because those memories came back. And then I remembered in a dream of like, no, that's not true. That's actually backwards. They call me Kitty, like, because I have the child energy. And why would we call him Kitty? But it's like baby cat. The lion being the cat, the king of beasts is the lion. It's like the Christ figure, like Aslan. But they call me Kitty or baby cat, like the baby lion. That's why they call me Kitty. But one time I thought it was him, and I said, "We call you Kitty. Remember that? Don't you remember our slogan? We call you Kitty." And I'm not surprised he didn't respond, because it turns out it's me. They call me Kitty. Let's see. What else? Did I say that? Orpheum indigos have 24 strands of DNA. There's a whole bunch of information at ascensionglossary.com. What else we got? That's my shopping list. Oh, what's this? Oh, this is like the third live stream I've meant to mention this. Like a couple of live streams ago, I forgot my train of thought, and I said it'll come back to me, and then it didn't. So one of the reasons that, just to go back to the 48 fucking strands of DNA, Sarah Adams and I were talking about this. So if any of you are 48 stranders also, send me a private message. I'd like to get in touch. I'd like to gather as many of us as possible. There aren't that many of us. Those of us who are working at these really high levels, it feels like we're not accomplishing anything. So this is what I was talking to Sarah Adams about. She was talking to me, and she made me feel better about it. I always feel better talking to her. So one of the things, if you imagine an onion, I was going to have a diagram for this. If you imagine an onion, I don't even know how I would diagram it. I think this is why I don't have a diagram, because I haven't figured out how to describe it. Basically, those who have less to do are achieving it faster. If you have less weight to lift or less, you seem like you have your act together, it's going to be a lot easier to achieve completion of the 12 strand, to clear, let's say that. To achieve the 12 strands of DNA being cleared and have your telepathy come online, and your whole life starts working, and you kind of got it going on, and you're like, okay, the ascension process is great, that wasn't so bad. And then you've got like the Orpheum indigos who have 24 strands, and some of these other populations who have 24 strands, and they're taking, nope. Whoops. Nope. Okay, if you've got, it's kind of a funky diagram. Let's say it's half an onion. And let's say if you start down here and your goal is to go all the way up. Let's say this is 5. Let's say that's 5. And you have to, let's say this is your 12 strands of DNA, and you manage to do it. You go all the way up there. There. So it's going to take, that's the 12th strand of DNA. These are those people. And then the next ones to reach their goal are going to be like the 24 strands. This is such a piece of crap. The 24 stranders. Basically, the whole point, I should have just said it in a sentence. If you have 48 strands of DNA, it's kind of like, it's not even, it's kind of like starting down here, because you're lifting a lot more, and you're going to go, and everybody else is like having achievement after achievement after achievement, and I don't know, and you're still out here lifting and hoisting and working on timelines, and you're doing both these sides at the same time, and it's really, 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 really fucking hard. It's really, really hard. And look at this diagram. Look how bad that is. All right. The point being, we were the first ones to start, and we're the last ones. And this is how we look too. We look like the wreck of the Hesperus by the time we're done. It's going to be, that really is the funniest looking thing I've ever seen. The point is, we're going to get there. We are going to get there. So I was going to talk about the architecture. How are we doing on time? I don't have any other place to go. I may as well just keep talking. Calico's gone overnight. Or 3 hours. Okay, I'll see if I can finish it. Once the camera's off, I'm just going to go eat. I may as well keep talking. I was going to talk, I started to, and then I got sidetracked. We are building this architecture. It's actually coming together. It happens in energetic, or the architecture for the fifth dimensional, the architecture for fifth dimension. You leave half of it up to the quantum field, because you have to do that. That's a skill set too. Those of us who are going over first are those of us who are comfortable. I think I may have even said this before. Comfortable is the wrong word. I don't know if it's entirely, I'm not entirely comfortable. I would rather have something tangible. It takes a certain skill set, a certain type of musculature. Faith is a muscle. Imagination is a muscle. All of this stuff is built energetically before it materializes. It's put into place with codes. I want to say it like a wing and a prayer, but that's really true. All of this stuff is it's formulated it's conceptualized, it's visualized, it's put into place with codes. Before it turns into matter. So if you're someone who is if you're one of those people who says, I'll believe it when I see it, you could never be on the leading edge. You're not in the position of being a leader. You can be in the position of being a follower. But what you really need to do is create it with your mind and have faith in its existence. Don't over control it. You have to leave a certain amount of it. The how, basically, it's like Abraham Hicks model, but then it becomes less linear. Abraham Hicks model is still somewhat linear, but a lot of it you just leave to the quantum field to, you say, bring this to me in, you just leave it to God. And the thing is, what you really need to do is work on your own vibrational frequency. Your first creation is going to be yourself, and your entire world is going to, it's your mirror, right? The entire world is your mirror. So if you just get your own shit together and feel really good about yourself, have enough self-love. That's incredibly important. You love yourself and you love other people equally. That's basically the 11 gateway right there. The giving and receiving has to be equal. The going through the 11 gateway is where in any imbalance, you can't get through the 11 gateway until you have balanced yourself in all directions. So half of you control what you can, basically 12-step, and you give half to God. You serve yourself, and as soon as you have enough, that doesn't mean you hoard, you give equally. So a lot of things in the fifth dimension are changing radically. The economic system is going to be totally different. Oh, this is one thing I want to talk about. There's no retirement. So employment is entirely different in the fifth dimension. There is no working to gain a wage for survival. That's gone. What you have, you swap earning a living for living with purpose. You live with purpose and you never retire. But you don't, when you serve forever. You serve all the time. We're always serving. I'm serving when I'm sleeping, I'm serving. Because I run energy through my body. You're always living a life of service, but it's not, service doesn't mean drudgery. Nobody's miserable. It means you're just doing something in constant giving and serving, and you're just doing what you love all the time. And it's half and half. So also I wanted to say everything is shared. In the fifth dimension, because it's group oriented, and we're going into from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius, which is very group and community oriented also. I love groups. I'm largely Arcturian. Arcturians are very group oriented. What was I going with this? So interesting. The energy picked up because now I'm swaying, right? Yes, there's no retirement. So you don't need to hoard a lump sum of money. What there is basically a universal trust fund. You live in trust, and you don't have to stockpile a lump sum or a bunch of matter just in case you live so long, because that would also keep you on the timeline and keep you bound to matter. It's not that it's more risky. It's actually it's considerably safer. What you and it's not that you have less security. It's not that at all. You do have security. What you have is constant, kind of eternal, perpetual connection with all other beings who all want to support you. So it's not like you're just totally changing the model. It's not like every man for himself. What if I get sick? No one's going to take care of me. Therefore, I need this. It doesn't work that way. You go to a model where it's all based in love, where if you know everyone is family and everyone loves you and everyone will be there to support you, you don't have to have so much in the bank. You can go, you can rely, actually, you can trust on the sharing process. The same way, if you're all sitting at Thanksgiving dinner table, when the platter gets passed to you, you don't hoard it and say, well, someday I might get hungry again. I'm going to keep all of this. No, you take just as much as you need, right? And you take as much as you want. You take as much as you want. You take as much as you need. You're going to get fed as much as you want and as much as you need. That's how much you take. And then you pass the platter. You're lighter. You don't have to carry everything. It works exactly the way breathing works. If you breathe properly, that's the way the financial system works. You don't have to stockpile all the oxygen you'll ever need. You don't have to be sedentary because you don't want to use up all your oxygen. You don't have to carry an oxygen tank on your back just in case you run out. You don't even have to have an oxygen tank in the bank. You can just trust, and it's safe. We all do this. That there's abundance all around. And I always have as much as I need all the time. I have as much as I need. At any point, if I wanted to, I could take off jogging and there would be more as I need it. And when I want to go to sleep, I can breathe even less and I don't have to worry about it because there's plenty. That's really the era that we're moving into. Is it going to be immediate? No. But so here's the thing about the architecture in the fifth dimension. We're building, I love the way Sarah Adams said it, we're establishing the architecture for the prolific circulation of joy. And that's absolutely true. For a time, we're still going to have money for the people who need it. But those of us who are working in energetic, who specialize in working with energy, I do that. We have learned, not without discomfort, I've gone through a lot of discomfort, and I actually really, really need more money right now. I only make about $40 a week. Cancel. I would like more because I need groceries too. And until we're up and running, and man, I'm working on this thing all the time. But the skill set that I do have is that I have cultivated the ability to, you know, like walking on waters where you trust that something's going to be there, and it is. Before it shows up, you step before the step is there because your trust is substantial. So your trust and your belief and your faith is an actual thing, man. It's an actual thing. You step out on your faith, and because your faith is so solid, something materializes. That's really the muscle. So the thing that I do is I step out and I commence things. I've said this before. It's absolutely true. I'm the horn of the rhinoceros, not only in the energetic construct, but I was the horn of the rhinoceros in Joan of Arc because I specialize in going first. I was the first, Joan of Arc was the first indigo child. I specialize in being, I'm really pointy, I specialize in going first where nobody has gone, armed with sheer conviction. I'll say, I don't care if nothing's there. You know what we're doing? We're going right there. And I'll tell you what it looks like. It's going to look like this. And somebody has to go and make that in energetic form with their mind. You create it mentally. And with your heart. You're like, no, you believe it real. You feel it real. You believe it real. And you have it so real. You just go, ugh, with no force. You have to keep a light heart too. But you have to be really determined that and every single day you reinforce that belief. While still, it's dicey because you still have to leave it up to the quantum field. So you have to say, however it happens is fine with me. You leave it up to, it's this or another thing, but this is all of these qualities that we want. You basically, you know what it's like? It's just like, remember when I said every force evolves a form, and sometimes these energetic streams, energetic rivers carry elements in it. They really do, for real, not kidding at all. What time is it? I gotta hurry up. This is just what it's like, though. Yeah. Energetic rivers carry, it's like objects or elements in it. There are certain energetic streams that have certain ingredients in it. And so the way it works, I've used this analogy before, and I think it's a good analogy. It's like if there's a certain, if there's an energetic river and it has specific ingredients in it, like apples, sugar, flour, butter, cinnamon, you may not know, you can look at those ingredients and you might not know exactly what it's going to make. It could make apple strudel. It could make apple pie. It could make apple pancakes. So you kind of leave it. You leave it to God to, in terms of what form exactly it's going to come down in. But it's not going to, based on those ingredients, you're not going to get chicken curry. It's not going to come down in some strange form. It's going to be something that's basically, did I say sugar? It has sugar in it. You're not going to get something completely foreign. So basically what we do, like Marie-Therese does a lot of timeline coding. And it's funny, we work in different ways, but there's a lot of overlap. Like a lot of the party thread, it's funny that when the three of us get together, it's very interesting. We form like this vortex. We go on group calls a lot. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What am I doing? It's very funny. But it's so comforting. I'm so glad I found them, because for the longest time, for a long time, I was only, it's not that I don't love the people who are doing other things, but it's always like, yeah, I see what you're doing and I love what you're doing, and I'm totally gung-ho with what you're doing, but for some reason I'm doing this thing and it's like way over there. And then I finally found other people and they're like way over there too. I'm like, oh, thank God. Thank God. I really thought that either I was crazy or I was like the only one, but no, you're doing it too. Timeline coding, tell me about it. Yes, that's what I saw. So it's fascinating when I'm, when I speak to Sarah Adams and she said, and she looks like hell. She's like, oh, I spent another night bringing 80 million people up from the underworld, and it was like coming up through cement, and I just whatever. She describes things in detail, and she's like, well, this is just like the work you do. And I know it is. That's like, I can relate. I do know what she's talking about. It's very, in its own way, it's very refreshing. But she's the one who said that it's like we're the first to be called and the last to come. It's like, so if you're a 48 strander, it just feels like we know that we're doing this massive work, and we're working so hard. We're working so fucking hard, and none of us. That's the thing. None of us are getting paid. Like I've been working on this for 7 years, and it's like, there's not a normal thing about me. It just seems like I'm the biggest fuck up in the world. And I'm doing all of this work for humanity. But then I talked to them and, and she's no longer teaching. She's no longer doing any of her stuff. She's working for humanity all the time. And she runs energy through her body too. And Maria Trees doesn't have a job. He's like, this is our job. And I said, I know. Thank you. I know. Me too. But that's because it's really important. It's really important. And we're building the architecture in the 5th dimension for the prolific circulation of joy. So you can't be in the 3rd dimension and also be up here investing all of our energy. Our energy has to be, energy goes where attention flows. You have to focus, focus, focus. And so we're working on this all the time. It's good. So I just wanted to tell you that it's coming together really well. It's beginning, I think it was Maria who said, I see it too. But she said it's beginning to finally come together in like particulates. The particles start to form, and elements will come together first before whole systems. The elements in the river come together before everything solidifies into a form. But now we're beginning to see small pieces of evidence. So it feels like it would be easy to get a little frustrated and say, how come after X amount of years, how come we're not further along? It's because there's also a lot of, there is still a lot of purging going on. There's still a lot of, there has been a certain amount of destruction going on. You have to dismantle the old system, and that can be brutal. That can be brutal to do. But it's coming together. But it takes people with very strong faith to get up every single day and walk out fearlessly, because you can't take fear where fear doesn't exist. So if you're fearful about stepping out on nothing, you can't be part of the building process, because we can't have the energetic platform be contaminated with fear. There's a safeguard in place. Like, if you are fearful, you'll sink, because fear can only exist in lower dimensions. But so what's happening is we're building it, in the fifth dimension in energetic form. And the same way when I said that cancer will, you know, if you're somebody who thinks about breast cancer all the time, and it will form out here in your energy field before it hits your body. So if you're somebody who can see energy, an energy healer can fix your aura and make adjustments out here, and then it won't hit your body. That's preventative medicine, and it's free. So that's one of the things that we're doing now with all the systems, and one of the reasons it's taking so long is because there's a lot of systems work to do, but it's coming together well. What else was I going to say? I think I might frame that. I'm going to save this for the next time. Yeah. Anything else? Probably. Probably I'll be back in like 2 more days. Oh, I was going to say that. All right. This is the last, how do I know it's the last thing I was just about to say, it's the last thing I'm going to say, but how the hell do I know? Whatever babbles out, babbles out. Yeah. I was going to talk about, briefly, there's a balance. Remember when I was talking, I wish, what the hell is my diagram? Oh well. Remember when I was talking about the triangle that's pointed down and the triangle that's pointed up? I was going to say briefly, there's a, and this relates to the Ascension Ark. There's a balance in maturity and a balance in ignorance. The many starseeds, those who are coming down from space, that would be, I'm going to say, for the purposes of this example, like the triangles can be the blade and the chalice. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the physically based people who rely, who basically their strength is physicality, and much of the time they have difficulty opening their crown chakra. And there's if they're very physically based, a lot of them, there's a certain spiritual immaturity in the, I don't mean this as a, as like a blanket comment. I actually mean the, hang on a minute. In the Ascension Ark, there's I felt like saying this, in the primary triad, primary triangle held by 3 individuals, which was, it was Isabeau of Bavaria, Joan of Arc, and King Charles VII before he died. And then when he died, it went out of balance, and we spun around really, 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 really fast, and we lost our anchor. Oh, that's another thing I was going to say. We lost our anchor because he died. And then the other people we put in there, we didn't really compensate. There was basically, it's a structure. It looks like this. Originally, it was supposed to have the 11 gateways in the middle. looks like an hourglass, basically. And the physically based people were spiritually immature. The starseeds, the ones coming down from space, were spiritually very mature, but have no ability to function on Earth because they've never been here before. So my only point is that there's a, they need to learn something from one another. And these are realms that are coming together. The starseeds are coming in, and they don't know the way, they don't, a lot of them, especially the starseed children, the new ones, like a lot of the crystal children, my daughter was this way, my elder daughter, new to a body, not usually in one, just very uncomfortable in physical form, doesn't really know how the physical world works. Now I'm sure she's fine, but when she first landed, you know how some babies are physical right away and they just get it. A lot of starseeds are not at home in a body. I know I wasn't either. I had a very difficult time just being in density. So fortunately, we're going into light body, so there a lot of the physical discomfort is, we're not going to have that in the fifth dimension. They're going to come in, and they're coming in with their a lot of their past life abilities. Since they're coming into light body, they can carry light is data, so they can come in basically up and running, and a lot of them are going to show up with missions already. It's like, I know what I'm here to do. I'm here to help create new Earth, and I came in with this skill, and I'm here to do it. Yeah. But for the transitional time, which is now, go lay down, please. For the transitional time, there are still, there is still, for the time being, it looks like there's in the Ascension Ark, there's still this, hang on a minute. I wanted to have this diagram together. Whoops. And the other one looks like this. I kind of already regret not doing this ahead of time, but there you go. It looks a little bit like that. One of them is just has, there's like an inside outside flip of light and dark. Like both, it's kind of like both are balanced, but those that are spiritually mature don't really understand, they have difficulty navigating the third dimensional paradigm, which is all backwards, and it's not in keeping with spiritual concepts. It's like very out of integrity, and there's a lot of lying. It's very corrupted, so they can't function when they get into physical form, and they're like, I'm in a carbon-based suit, and I hate it, and the world doesn't work, and I hate it. And those who are at home in physicality, who like the traditional structures, they have a difficult time going up because they're like, there's nothing there. I don't see anything. It's unreliable, etc. Okay, I think that's all I wanted to say about that. Anything else? There's so much else, but I think I'm done. I'm going to wind up talking about that, but a different day. Okay. Okay. I'll probably see you in like 2 days. Oh, if you would, go to the Ascension Ark on YouTube and subscribe to my channel. I would appreciate it because I'm trying to build my channel there. If you would like to make a donation, I'm in dire need of money at the moment, groceries, etc. And if you'd like to book a private session, you can send me a private message, and on my wall, I'm going to put a link for PayPal. If you would like to make a donation or book a session, that'd be great. Okay. Oh, I was going to talk about fifth dimensional illnesses too. But okay, I'll talk about that next time. All right, that's all. I love you. Bye. Whoops.